Welcome everybody to Candlelight Yin Yoga. We're going to start on our backs in a reclining butterfly pose. Now, you can, if you want to, put like a blanket underneath your back or a blanket underneath your legs. If you want to add a little bit of a shoulder opener at the beginning, I'm going to. So the way I'm going to do this, because what I want to get at is the kind of deeper muscles in my shoulder rather than the chest muscles, which tends to happen when I do too big a shape. And sometimes that's intentional. I want to stretch out my chest muscles. Is I'm going to take a blanket and roll it so that it's relatively small, okay? Not too big a shape. And then I'm going to put that down, whoops, the other way, so that the more folded edges go closer to my low back, and the loose kind of, this blanket doesn't have fringe, but those kind of edges, the edges of the blanket that aren't very structured, those go away from me. Because I want the area under my low back to be as smooth and as even as possible. It just feels better over time. It's sort of like the Princess and the Pea, where at first everything feels good, and then you've got a lentil in your mattress. In any case, this big pillow I'm going to put underneath my knees. You could also use a couple of smaller pillows, one under each knee, okay? So I'm going to recline myself back over this blanket such that I wind up with my whole rib cage supported, and I like to go just a little bit lower than the ribs, but not all the way down to the very bottom. Some people like it all the way down to the very bottom, so you might have to do a little experimenting. But I give myself a moment to sort of rock around on it and see if I can feel out the spot that's going to be just right tonight. And then if you want your head a little bit higher, if you've got a long enough blanket, you can sort of make a little bit of a wrinkle, and it'll hold your head just a little bit higher than than the rest. You can fold the blanket under for quite a lot more support if you like. Okay, so then the feet go together, soles of the feet. Let those rest on the floor, and the knees are open like little butterfly wings. And your feet can be in closer or farther away. I like mine to just relax wherever they land, rather than trying to hold them somewhere. So we can let the muscles all kind of go. And yin is a really slow practice. It's usually done when the muscle is not warm, but relatively cool, so that the tug of the practice is on the connective tissue layers. Now, that being said, we're not trying to stretch our connective tissue. We're trying to give it like a little bit of something, a little bit of pressure, a little bit of tug, but we're not trying to pull on it really vigorously, okay? So you get in a shape and you relax and you see, do you feel something? And if you feel something and it's pleasant, that's the goal. We're kind of trying to find, like, I feel a little something, so that I am on the edge of sensation. I don't not feel anything. I do feel something. That's the edge I want to be on. And most importantly, I can relax here, right? So you use props if it's too spicy, there's too much sensation, and it doesn't feel like you can relax. You want just the right amount of sensation, because when you're aggressive with connective tissue, it fights as well it should. It's connective tissue, it's trying to hold you together. What we're trying to do is we're trying to, because there's not a lot of blood flow to connective tissue, what we're trying to do is get synovial fluid in the joints. We're trying to get the layers of tissue that live on top of each other separated by hyaluronic acid layers to produce more hyaluronic acid, so those layers slip around a little bit more easily. We're trying to hydrate the layer right underneath the skin, right? There's epidermis, which is the outside of the skin, and then the dermis, and then underneath that, before we get to the muscle, is a layer of hyaluronic acid. And so we're trying to stimulate that a little bit so that we get more fluid in the body, but it's not direct blood flow, and there's not a lot of nerve endings per se. So we're not trying to get a big feel. We're trying to get a little feel. All right, now that I've lectured, we're gonna stay for a couple more moments, just breathing. yourself just follow the breath with your mind if you can. Feel the body breathing, or feel the rise and fall of your chest. Now we're going to stay for about 1 more minute, but if it gets too spicy, you can bring your knees together or get off of the blanket. So 2 more big breaths. Now, I'm going to bring my knees together with my exhale, and I'm going to take this pillow out from underneath me, but I am not going to do much more than that. I'm going to leave this guy under my back for a second longer. I'm going to do these little windshield wipers with my legs. Now my feet are really close together, about bridge distance. And that's where I usually start this process. And then I might kind of wiggle them out a little wider. And then I'm going to wiggle them out a little wider. But first, I'm going to roll and take this guy out now. And then roll back. So I gave myself a chance to kind of massage back and forth over that blanket, and that felt kind of nice to me. And now it feels really nice to see what happened, right? So I can stop my legs whenever I'm ready and just kind of notice what happened with my upper back. Now, for me, depending on what I have under my upper back, I get radically different experiences. So when I put a block underneath my upper back and one under my head, that is such a firm surface that everything kind of expands around it. And my upper back feels like it spreads out horizontally when I'm done. It doesn't, but it feels that way. When I do something like a bolster or a bigger support in that kind of way, a little softer than the block, but bigger, I have this sense that there's like still something under my back, right? But with this guy, just having the blanket underneath, what happens is much more subtle. And basically it just feels like my arm bone dropped back into the socket a little deeper, okay? So it just has taken a little bit of pressure out of this muscle in the front that stabilizes my arm bone, or really it stabilizes the shoulder blade, but because the shoulder blade gets pulled forward, it pulls the arm bone forward too, but it's allowed that muscle, which is pectoralis minor, to really let go a little bit. And it's a great way to adjust the posture of that kind of leaning over the computer or over your device, right? If that's a posture that you tend to do, arms in front, shoulder blade, arm bone rolling forward, this really subtle adjustment is really nice. Okay, so we're gonna do a reclining version of the lizard. So before we get to all that, because we're gonna start with a banana, then we're gonna do a lizard, then we're gonna do a Buddha, all on one side, and then we'll do that whole thing on the other side. So a block might be helpful, and I forgot to mention this at the beginning. So if you'd like, while you're hanging out, you can go grab a block. If you don't have a block, a pillow will work. Or you can do it without and just see how it goes, okay? So first we're gonna do the banana, but I'll give you a second to go grab that, because I gotta grab mine too. Oh, and a strap, sorry about that. If you can hold onto your foot behind your back with your hand comfortably, you don't need the strap. but if you can't, something to hold onto, a towel or a yoga strap will be useful, okay? I'm just gonna put that within reach. Okay. Now, you wanna make sure you have enough room to stretch out from fingertips to toe tips. So that's the first part. So if you need to adjust or jostle your space, do that, because some of us live in very tiny places, and so we're kind of sneaking our way in between the bed and the wall or whatever to make room for our yoga practice. So you're gonna reach up nice and long, and then we're gonna bend the upper body into a moon shape or a banana shape, okay? And so I just bent from the side of my waist up and towards my left, and then I just sort of slid my legs over to the left. Now you can stay just like that with the arms up and the body kind of bent. You can take your right leg up over the left ankle. If you went the other way, clearly it'll be the opposite. And then you could land your right hand in your left palm, or you can bend at the elbows a little bit more like a cactus, okay? So it really is up to you how you want to organize this. Now, the little choices, the little adjustments are going to change the sensation. So what you're doing is you're exploring these little options to get the just right amount, right? The Goldilocks spot. Not too hot, not too cold, just right. That's what we're going for. And then, like, if my arm is over my head, I get sensation in the back of this arm and in my armpit and all down my side waist and down the hip and down the side of my leg. If I bend at the elbow like that, not as much in my arm, right? So you just make the adjustments that are right for you. And you want your hips still both on the floor and both shoulder blades still on the floor. So we're not rolling to our side. And then just get heavy. We're gonna stay a wee bit longer. Gotta make sure you can see the clock. Okay. We're going to stay put for one more minute with this shape. And I'm a big fan of taking really deep breaths for the last minute, because usually I'm with you and I like the breath to be a little more gentle. But the last minute of a pose, it's fun to sort of explore the edges of the breath. So nearing the end of that hold. It just gives me a little more awareness of all the little muscle fibers and how they are moving and the tension patterns that are present in my body. I think it's cool. It's a way to kind of learn a little bit about what's happening. I'm going to take a nice big breath. And you're going to let go with a big Now, we're going to gently kind of release ourselves. Now, before you go anywhere, the side that is the longest side, that is going to be also the longer side in the next pose that we're going to do. So just remember which one that was. So we're going to come back away from the banana shape. And And then just pause for a second. You can do some movement. And I like to just check out, like, is there a difference in the right side versus the left side? So my right side was the longer, stretchy side, right? The left side was the curled in side. And it feels like my right leg is a little bit longer than my left. I think if I measured them, that probably wouldn't be the case, but it feels that way. This part of my hip feels like it's closer to the ground than this part. It's not. If I put my hands here, they're exactly the same. It's really just the sensation. And so I like this kind of awareness or this moment to just check in, see what that sensation is like. And if there's anything that feels unpleasant, like your sacrum or the shoulder, this is your chance to move those body parts around. Now, my favorite thing is to give myself a little massage right on the sacrum. And you can also kind of shake out arms or do some little shoulder movement, that sort of thing, okay? So you can do anything that seems like a good idea. Now, this is where there's going to be some options that the block might come into play. So I'm going to show you some options. So we're going to take hold of the left leg, okay? And the right leg is going to stretch all the way out. Now, for some of us, if your hip flexors are tight enough, just doing this is going to be enough. And you can hold on to your foot like this, okay? Essentially, we're going to do an upside down dragon, which I'm going to call a water dragon because, you know, they're under the water, so the upside down is kind of the way it goes. So, so in any case, this might be plenty. And for me, it is pretty much plenty. But for people with much looser hips, you may not feel anything, okay? So if you're in this position and you got nothing, there's no sensation, that's where the block can come in. Now, I recommend starting with the smallest edge of your block rather than going up for the taller edges. Build up to the tall edge if you still don't feel anything. Just go, like, start with the least possibility and then work your way up. So to do that, what you would do is lift your hips and put your block underneath your hips, okay? Same thing is going to happen. We're going to bring this left leg in. We're either going to hold onto it here or hold onto it up here, and then that right leg is going to stretch out, okay? Now, for me, this is too much because I'm already like plowing into my shoulders and my hip flexors. I can't even straighten my leg, right? My hip flexors are too tight. So there's no reason for me to go for this level, but this is a level for you if you want. Okay, now, that being said, you can also give yourself, like if you've got, you know, you want a little support under your head or under your neck or something, you can do that so you have a little bit more soft. Okay, so left leg is the one that we're going to hold on to. The right leg is the one that's going to lengthen. And again, you can hold on to it like that so it's like a happy baby. Or you can hold on to it like this, just kind of hang on to the leg. You can, you know, use any other method that you like. And we're just going to pause. Now this is not going to be as long as like, we're going to repeat this shape again. So we're not going to hold this forever. We're going to stay for about 2.5 minutes though, so that we can kind of get this sense of this hip flexor really letting go. Trying to let this guy relax. So this leg, over time and with gravity, is hopefully going to just sink towards the earth. Right, now if you feel any pinching in your low back or in this hip joint over here, definitely soften this whole thing down. You could hold onto your foot with the strap, right? And sometimes for me it feels nice to put a pillow kind of up under the knee so the thigh has a place to land. It's nice. It's very nice. And again, just kind of letting gravity work on me here. Sometimes it does help me to kind of do a little shimmy in the joint. Just sort of release any pressure or any, if it feels like it's not completely lined up right, sometimes it feels better to have the toe pointing more up or more in. And so that little bit of a shimmy sometimes tells me the story. So I'm going to stay for another minute or so here. I like this kind of trying to let this arm relax while simultaneously holding onto the foot. So it's only going to relax so much, but it's sort of like that weight of the arm kind of drawing my foot or my leg towards the ground. And again, you don't have to pull. It's really just kind of relaxing as best you can. So we're going to take 2 more big breaths here. And then with your exhale, release your leg. Oh, like that. Okay. So if you're on the block, you can stay on the block, but put this left leg on the ground, because we're going to take this right leg and we're going to pick it up. Oh, so we engage the muscle underneath that, or at that hip, and then we're going to lower it back down almost to the ground, bring it back up, engaging that muscle. One more time, lower it down almost to the ground, bring it back up, and then we're just going to give that a little shimmy, a little shake in the joint. We're staying with this leg, okay? So this leg is also going to do this next thing, which is a variation on the Sleeping Buddha, which is and kind of like the Sleeping Buddha and the half saddle head baby. So if you would, we're going to come back to this shape, but we're starting with this guy. So I like to have a bolster or a pillow of some sort, and I like to have something to put under my head. So I'm going to use my block here to make sure, you know, I've got a head support that feels okay. I know that holding onto my foot is going to be problematic at first, so I am going to use my strap, and I have a loop in my strap, but you could hold on to the 2 ends if you don't, okay? So that's going to go around my foot, and then you either are going to hold on to the top of your ankle or the top of your foot behind you. Now, if your legs, like mine, don't really want to rest on top of each other, so what I'm going to do is slip this guy in so I have a place for this top knee to rest. Oh, hold on. Okay, there we go. So I'm going to draw this foot towards my buttock. I'm going to hold onto the foot. I'm holding onto the strap that's on the foot, but you may want to hold onto the foot itself. And then I'm just letting this arm relax to wherever it wants. You could put this arm under you as a pillow if you like, or you could put your, you know, if you want to prop your head up, that's also good. And so we're just letting the top of this thigh. Now, as the top of my thigh, as soon as I bend my knee in this position, I feel the top of my thigh. And I did a lot of chair pose over the last few days. And so it also, I can feel the top of my thigh from that. But that aside, as my thigh stops, you know, as it kind of gets softer, I can always bring the leg further back behind me, okay? So you can bring the foot towards the buttock, and that will create more torque. Or you can bring the thigh towards the buttock, or bring the thigh backwards, and that will create a little bit more, you know, a little more pressure on your quads. Again, you're not going for super spicy. We're going for like, oh, I feel that. And that's where we're stopping. Because we're going to do this for about another 1.5 minutes. It's kind of fun. The other reason I like to use the strap, besides the fact that it's just easier on my knee, is that I can relax my hand a little bit more. So if holding onto your foot is becoming a little bit trickier, you can you hold onto it with a towel or whatever you got handy. It just starts to get weary in your hand. Feel a little softer, and it's our last 30 seconds here. So I just took my thigh a little further back. just want to make sure that your knee joint doesn't feel like it's being twisted in any way. It should feel pretty stable. Nice big breath. And then we're gonna let go and nice and easy now, unwind your leg. I gotta get this up from underneath my head. I'm gonna take my strap off. You may not have to worry about that part. And then, we're just gonna take a moment. I'm gonna put both my feet back on the floor, and I'm just gonna windshield wiper my legs again really gently at first. And then I'm gonna bring my knees in. And give my low back a little love. So these are like for me, naturally spicy areas. Top of my thigh, hip flexor, all of those things that we've been working on here. So it's interesting to me, again, to pause for a moment when I've done the side and just see how things went. And does it feel like what I did was okay? Do I feel kind of pleasant sensations now that it's done? Or does anything feel sore? And if it feels sore, then we definitely want to do it differently next time. A little more support, a little more structure, use a little bit more props. But if everything feels kind of interesting and cool, then groovy. let's do it again. All right, so we're gonna go back to the water dragon or upside down dragon here. So left leg this time, and for me, like whatever way you started is fine, but left leg is the one where the hip flexor is going to stretch out, and the right leg is the one that I'm holding on to, okay? So I'm just going to lengthen out and let my leg get heavy, and this one I'm letting my arm get kind of heavy, and again, you can hold underneath the knee instead. You don't have to hold the foot. And then again, if you want that little bit of support, whoop, sorry about that, buddy. Try not to wreck my plants while I'm over here. Anyway, that little bit of support underneath your thigh, you can add that guy in there too. And that's nice. Just kind of holding onto your foot where it feels like the best place to hold it. And letting this guy just stretch out and relax, or you put that block back underneath you because you need that little extra bit of lift, right? So that is between you and your hips. I don't want to get in between those two things. So we're going to stay for another minute here, y'all. Maybe we should call this sleeping dragon. Also a cool name. At the end, I'll let you guys tell me what you think. You can leave me a note down in the comments if you're watching this on YouTube. Tell me what you think we should call this pose. All right, yogis, we have about 3 more breaths to go. Depending, with your exhale, you can let go. And then depending on whether you've got the block under you or not is depending on what you want to do next. So this leg, that right foot is going onto the floor, okay? You can slip the block out at this point if you like, because we're gonna pick this left leg up. You can also leave the block there, that's fine. Just make sure you've got a leg on the ground for support. And then we're gonna lower down, almost to the ground, but not quite, and bring it back up. And lower down, almost to the ground, but not quite, and bring it back up. and then we're gonna shake it out. So I like little shakes and then like slightly bigger, but the little ones are kind of fun for this practice because it just jostles the joint like in the kindest little way. Okay, so then we're gonna take this leg back down. Oh, you can give yourself a little rinse. This is where we're gonna roll into the second side of our Buddha, of our sleeping Buddha. So I'm gonna get my strap in place because I know I'm gonna want it. And I'm gonna put my head support over here. And then we just roll onto the other side. Now, again, if you're holding onto your foot, you're just gonna take a moment and get your legs settled in. And then you're just gonna reach back here and grab that foot by the top of the ankle or the top of the foot, right on? And so this arm just lets you, let this shoulder kind of settle into place. I have the pillow here between my knees, so I have a little bit of support for this thigh. And then I'm just gonna, like, if I'm wobbly, I can bend my bottom leg. If it feels okay to get straight, I'm gonna do that. It feels good to be straight right now, for that leg to be all straightened out. So I'm just feeling how this top arm wants to go. I feel like I want to turn my hand the other way. Yep, that's more comfortable. Okay, so you're just finding your way too, right? It might be better to grab on the outside of your ankle or the inside of your ankle, or, you know, use a tool like this. And again, I'm kind of letting my fingers relax and just letting them hold, let the strap kind of hold onto the little curl of my fingers. Right now there's still, this leg is not as tight as my other leg, so it's not as, there's like the barest hint of sensation, and I feel like it might shift a little earlier, so at some point, a little bit faster maybe, I'm going to bring my leg a little further back behind me. Other possibilities exist. It's just that it won't shift at all. But just, you know, notice how your body is responding to each side independently of the other. So there might be differences. This one might be your tighter side. So we've got about another minute here. So we're going to take 3 more big breaths. All right, so I'm going to gently release my foot. Let that guy straighten out. Come on back onto my back. Oh. Give everything a little rinse out. Oh. Now in a second, I'll give you all kinds of time to move around, but first, just give yourself a little, like you can windshield wipe or a back massage, but just give yourself a moment to stretch out and again, kind of feel the differences between these two things. Oh, and just kind of, for our shoulders, we're gonna reach the arms up and we're gonna lift, 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 so much so that it almost feels like it's picking you up off the floor, and then bring your shoulder blades back down. So reach, reach, reach. We're trying to pull the shoulder blade way off to the sides and then let it drop back into the floor. Good, one more time. Reach, and then let it drop and give your arms a little shimmy. Okay, now you can do whatever you want for a little bit. So you might want to do some cat-cow shapes. You might want to do some downward dogs, any kind of movement that feels fluid and nice to you. We are going to come into a lunge. So we're going to kind of repeat this pose that we were just doing, but we're going to repeat it. We're going to do it a little differently. Coming back to the dragons. It's a dragons and Buddhas kind of night. Oh. So again, because we're coming back for a second round, we don't necessarily, oh, that feels so good. We don't necessarily have to, we're not going to hold them for as long. We're going to hold them for a length of time, but not maybe for the length of time if we were only doing the shape once. Okay. So you can join me when you're ready. And a few yoga blocks or a bolster or some pillows are nice. And so we're in this dragon lungy shape, and you can do any version of this that you like. Put your hands on the floor. You can put your elbows on the floor. You can one hand on the floor, one hand on your leg. You can have both hands on your hips. You can do whatever version you want. So we're going to hold this shape for about 3 minutes. And so, since we're together here, whenever you join me, it's, you know, we're going to stay a while. If you want to wait a minute and join me, then you'll only be holding it for 2 minutes. So when you get here, just feel out how much pressure should I put on the front of my hip. Now I've got my right leg forward and my left hip back, just because that's how I landed. If your knee bothers you at all, you can put like a folded blanket under your knee or something a little soft. There are the yoga props you can buy that are specifically for putting under your knee. If you have those, clearly you could use those. But even just a little soft folded towel is nice. So we're 1 minute in, and I'm going to come down onto my elbow, but I'm going to put this block here so it's not quite so low. Actually, I might go a little bit higher. And then I'm just going to let this leg kind of fall open a little bit to the side. I'm going to try not to be too abusive, but I like the slight change in angle. Okay, just kind of let it hang out over there. Support under the front of my thigh and hip. So I'm going to build a little pillow mountain. So I've got a tiny bit of support there. Okay, so that's the end of the second minute. So you can do as you like. I am going to go far down here. I need to give myself a little bit more structure. So I'm going to let my thigh go back where it wants to go. Use this as a little head support. And this is pretty far in. And so for me, this is pretty spicy, but it's okay for a minute. I'm feeling pretty good about it. And I built my way up to it. So you decide. Does this feel like a good idea, or should you stay up a little higher? So we're arriving at that last moment here, that last breath. So you're gonna let go with a big and then we're gonna come all the way back. Now friends, we are going to sit back into a half saddle. To do the half saddle, essentially what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take that thing I was doing laying on my side holding my foot and just turn it 90 degrees so my belly button faces the ceiling, okay? So to settle into this, I'm gonna sit down like that. Now I've put this bolster underneath my hip because that makes this a lot more comfortable for me. And essentially, I'm gonna sit here and lean back a little. Now, some people can lay all the way onto their back, and for me, if I build a little pillow mansion back here, I can do that, but I don't really need to. We're not gonna be here as long, we're here for 3 minutes, and this is gonna be plenty of stretch for the top of my shin and the top of my thigh. And I'm kind of leaning this way just a little bit so that my hip and my knee line up a little closer with each other. Now, if your foot snuggles in really tight against your butt, then going straight back is gonna be a little bit better for you. So we're gonna hang out here for a bit. So the same poses, hopefully I won't set my own hair on fire back here, but the same poses, just done a different way, right? Done with a little bit more spice. But we still don't want them to be too spicy, right? Just the right amount. It's feeling really good. I like when the sensation on the top of my thigh is just like that beginning, and I can feel each of the muscles, the way they kind of work with each other, the kind of overlay of pattern there. It's cool. And again, I don't want this to be so spicy that my knee hurts, because then I don't feel this groovy stuff in the top of my thigh. All I can feel is my knee hurting, right? So you want to go just the right amount. And for some people, something under the shin, like a blanket under the shin would be good, because the top of the ankle is a little more challenged by opening all the way up flat. So if you're in the 7th circle of hell, don't be afraid to change it up. We're about halfway through. We'll stay a bit longer. Now the great news is that you're at home doing your yoga practice, and I'm at my house doing my yoga practice. And so you can keep following along with me, but you can also like jump ship if you need to, right? You can decide, I'm pulling the escape hatch and getting out of here. Because I've had enough, or I feel like things have shifted in a direction that I'm not feeling a pleasant sensation anymore, or just I've mentally done. Like, all of those are good reasons, because your body and your mind are not actually disconnected from one another. They are actually a unit. Now we're in that last 45 seconds here, y'all. So take nice deep breaths. Oh, it feels good. I like to do this kind of a massage where I use my fingertips, because it helps the fascia, right under my skin. And again, this is the whole thing. We're trying to get to these layers of connective tissue. And this little fingertip massage is really nice for helping to release those little fascial layers. Get them moving over the top of my thigh muscles. All right, you guys, so we're gonna take a giant, big breath. You're gonna exhale and squeeze your thighs towards each other. Now, if you're laying on your back, roll to your side. If you're seated, roll forward so you can get that leg up off the ground. And then unwind your leg, and we're gonna take a moment to give everything a bit of a shimmy. Oh, it feels good. And so hopefully the end result of the practice is like, oh yeah, that's nice. I like the feeling after a yin pose, where like my whole body just feels like, it's like downshifting and easing the seat back. It's nice. All right, yogis, I got good news. We're gonna do the other side. So we gotta come back to our lunge. So my left leg is gonna be forward, and the right leg is gonna be the one on the ground this time. So you need a couple cats in between. Oh, you could throw in some little cat shapes. And when you're ready, bring yourself into lunge. And again, like you want to feel this out on each side independently, right? Don't assume that your body's going to want to be exactly the same on both sides, because it's not the same on both sides. We are asymmetrical. It's the way it is. And so, like trying to force ourselves to be symmetrical is silly. And so we're here, we're easing in, checking it out, hanging out for a few minutes together. And again, so I'm going to take a similar approach to this one, where I'm going to kind of do 3 different layers of the dragon pose, which is what the lunge is called in yin, which I find charming, but in any case. So you may want to join me for those 3 layers, or you may want to stay with whatever version you're doing right now. So I'm going to take one more big breath, and then I'm going to go down. And again, I'm going to come onto my elbow, and I might decide, like I did last time, that I want a little bit of support underneath my thigh. And I'll let this leg kind of drop open like that. And so kind of feeling this shape out for this side. So these dragon poses for me are kind of, they ride the line a little bit between yin and yang, because I do them in a yin way. Instead of being dynamic in them and collecting my muscles around my bones, I'm still doing a little more of a yin, kind of releasing into this shape. But they're a little on the spicier side. So for me, they create a situation where I might like want to back off, right? Or I might need to be a little more careful, a little more cautious. Okay, so I'm going to come into this deepest shape. Give myself a little forehead position. And again, I let this leg just follow its natural inclination. Here. And this for me is all about the front of my hip flexor, and then there's a little tiny bit of an experience in this left leg, but mostly it's about my right hip flexors on this particular side. And so just making sure that that feels like it's a good idea. So it's our last big breath. And then we're gonna ease our way back. Oh. And again, this is gonna turn into a half saddle. I've gotta shift my position a little bit on my mat, so I'm gonna bring this guy forward. Oh, my right leg just a little bit further forward. There we go. And then I'm gonna settle into this position and see how it goes. So far so good. I'm liking the top of my shin, the top of my ankle is fine. This thigh feels pretty good. Oh. Actually, this is feeling good enough that I might lean back onto my elbow. Yeah. And so we're here, exploring a pose, breathing deep. Oh. Got a little cramp in my toe, so now that's better. And so you might be laying all the way back on the floor. This foot might be tighter in, might be farther away. You might be laying on your side for, you know, you can go back to that verse shape we did. You can lay on your back and hold onto your foot, or on your belly rather, and hold onto your foot. Like those, all kinds of different possibilities exist. You're gonna choose the right one for you. Breathing and settling in. I'm going to come back up, and I'm going to come back a little bit. So now it's feeling like things are getting a little bit more like I can realign myself. So this is the thing for me. It's just pay attention, pay attention, pay attention. And as I feel the pose kind of change and shift, then I make different choices. It might be that I can relax more deeply. It might be that I realign it. So we're about halfway through. So we've got just that little tiny bit. Last 30 seconds, y'all. Last minute, last little bit of a pose is so cool. It's my favorite part. Can you avoid like your mind wanting to jump forward out of it, right? And just be present for a little bit longer. Nice big breath. And then you can, if you're laying on your back, you can squeeze your legs together, roll to your side, or you can just kind of roll out of here, get your leg out, and pause for a moment. See how it went. Oh, that feels good. And so, it's a lot of front of the hip action. So in Chinese medicine, the two acupuncture meridians that come up the top of our thigh, right through the hip flexor of the top of the thigh, are stomach and spleen. And it's weird that those go together, but they're a companion in Chinese medicine. Now, the stomach is, you know, like part of our immune system in that it is, it's our food's digested, and then like the kind of flora and fauna that are involved in our digestive system really are our kind of first layer of immunity. And the kind of food that we eat and those kinds of things are part of what makes us healthy and happy, right? The choices that we make there, or the opposite, as the case may be. But in any case, so that's, and then the spleen is like this storage component, the storage container, and it probably has other roles too, but it holds red blood cells. So your body produces red blood cells, stores them in the spleen. So there's kind of this implication of, you know, in both of these organs, this implication for nourishment. So in the terms of red blood cells, that's what carries oxygen to our cells, and in terms of the stomach, that's where kind of the nutrients are broken down into parts that can be absorbed for the body. So some of the implications in Chinese medicine are, how do we nourish ourselves? How do we on emotional levels too, right? Not just on the physical level, but you know, how do we care for ourselves on an emotional level? And so in times when there's a lot of stressors and a lot of challenge, and there's a lot of those kinds of, you know, we don't know what's going to happen next, taking some thought into how we care for ourselves might be appropriate. All right, so we got one more dragon, which is the dragonfly. And so that is a wide angle forward bend, or if you have a wall handy and you can put your wide angled legs up a wall, you can do it as a legs up the wall variation, or you can do this on your couch. If you've never done this, this is fun. So if you have a couch that's empty, nobody's sitting on it, and you can stretch your legs out, just go up to your couch, sit down in front of it, spin, lay on your back, and just scooch up to the couch far enough that you can just rest your legs in a big V up on the couch cushions, okay? It works great. It's a great way to do a dragonfly on your back, because some of us, as soon as we have the legs out, we can't fold forward. Our pelvis goes backwards like that. And so for those of you like that, doing this on your back is going to be a much more pleasant experience. So I have my legs out wide, but not quite as wide as I could go. I don't like to go right to the edges. It feels pinchy. And then I fold forward, and I put a blanket under my knee to keep my knees from hyperextending. You can put bigger space under the knees so that actually it releases some of the tension from your pelvis. Okay, so bigger pillows under the knees is also a way to get a little bit of relief here. And then I like blocks under my elbows, or I put a pillow here. Some people are very comfortable just laying down on the ground. And if that is you, go for it. So we're gonna stay here for a bit. This is gonna be a longer pose like the one we did at the beginning. And now this inner thigh area is where our liver and kidney meridians live. Oh. So we kind of give our nourishing a little bit of support with the two organs that also help eliminate the stuff we no longer need. What you doing? Back to the yoga. I was temporarily distracted by the tiny furry coworkers that I live with. So we're about halfway through here, yogis. This pose is, I think it's a fun pose too, because when you hold things a little bit longer, it's a fun pose to just kind of be present for. And because those inner thighs are tender, it's a good one to practice self-care. So if it's feeling like, whoo, you should back off, then you might listen to those inclinations. Because we've got just over a minute left. And you could come all the way back to the center and take a moment just to rinse this pose out, or you could wait that last minute here. Let's see how it goes. We're going to take 2 more breaths. And then hold the next inhale in. Come all the way up the tippy top of that breath. And then let it go. Lean back, bend your knees. Now if you're up the couch or up the wall, bend your knees and then bring your legs together. And then you can come back to your yoga mat, or you can just kind of spin around so that you are not encumbered by the wall. So we are going to do a reclining twist. That's going to be our last thing, and then Shavasana. And I'm hoping that, because my clock, I realized when I got started here tonight, is not at all on the right time. So I have this old-fashioned clock with hands, and my coworkers like to change the time, and I forget sometimes to check and see if that's right. Anyway, but I think based on when I started rambling off at you guys, that I have a little bit more time. I'm going to keep my fingers crossed that that's true. Okay, so I'm going to have a bolster handy and a blanket, because those are the things I want for my final relaxation. And then I am going to lie down on my back, and you can join me here when you get there. Okay? So, once you're lying down, we're gonna do a twist. Now, this twist, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cross one leg over the other, and then I'm gonna use my little pillow here to kind of slide in so that this leg will drape over the top. Now, some people like to wrap that foot around the bottom, so if you want to wrap your foot around your calf, you can do that instead. And then just get your upper body nice and level on the ground, and you can reach your arms out like a T, or up like a cactus, or way up over your head, or you can put them down low, okay? So you're just going to find the right spot for you. Most of the time, I like to turn my head to the direction that my knees are in. Occasionally, I like to go the other way. But if I'm trying to relax more deeply, I turn with the legs. And if I want a little more spicy sensation, I go the other way because it's a little bit more interesting around the neck. But just choose for yourself the right way. This is going to be one of the poses that we did, just a little bit shorter here. But still will stay a while. So you need a little more support. Put more support under there. Stay for just about one more minute. You take a nice deep breath and let your body sink into the floor. Okay, so we're going to take one more big breath. Now you're going to take this top leg and bring it back to the middle. And then you can give yourself some moment here to do the little windshield wipers or stretch your legs all the way out. And then we're going to do the other side. So I'm going to bring my pillow across. Bring the knees in, make sure I got enough room here. I'm gonna bring my knees in, cross the one leg over the other, and then settle them over so that my top leg will drape over, and then I'm gonna reorganize my upper back so that I've got this shoulder in an appropriate place. And hopefully my legs can relax. Settle ourselves in, stay a few minutes. So we're going to take a nice deep breath. And then you're going to float your legs back to the center. Oh. Then, then it's time for the best part, at least as far as I'm concerned, which is Shavasana. So we're going to get ourselves whatever kind of nice comfy things you might want, whether you want a blanket over top of you, or a little pillow for your legs. And then, you might need a little bit of movement first. And then let yourself settle in. And we'll take some time here just to let ourselves relax completely. Take a moment to notice your breath. And take a breath so deep you could feel it all the way to your toes. then go with a big and then you can start to wiggle and stretch and move around. You can give yourself a hug and a back massage for the road. Now, I like to roll to my side and chillax for a second, but if you want to roll yourself up, or rock up, you can. Just take a moment here before I prop myself up. Oh. So, yogis, hopefully I got the timing kind of right. Thank you for joining me tonight for Here There Be Dragons Yin Yoga class. Take a nice deep breath with me. Big sigh. Enjoy the rest of your night. Namaste.